The third precept is trying to abstain from sexual practices. The fourth precept is trying to abstain from false speeches. The fifth precept is trying to abstain from taking intoxicants that can cause carelessness and forgetfulness. The sixth precept is trying to abstain from eating at the wrong time, mainly from the afternoon until dawn the next day. The seventh precept is trying to abstain from dancing, singing, listening to music, watching show, wearing garlands, perfumes, ointments, etc. And the eighth precept is trying to abstain from lying or staying on high and luxurious beds and seats. So that is the procedures for taking refuge as well as taking the precept. And I will move on with the Dhamma talk, the summary of the Dhamma talk today. So to begin the talk, Saraji shares about the story when back in the Buddha time, when he came to this kingdom, then he taught the bhikkhus or the monks, the Sangha, the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught the bhikkhu how to contemplate in the four foundations of mindfulness. And what are the four? The four foundations of the mindfulness would be body, kaya, body, vedana, feeling, citta, mind, as well as dhamma. So I will directly recite the Pali and I will do the same. After that would be the English translations. Kattame jattaro ida bhekkhave bhikkhu kaye kana nupasi viharati attabi sambhajano sattima vineye loke apicha domanasam vedana nupasi viharati attabi sambhajano sattima vineye loke apicha domanasam citta nupasi viharati attabi sambhajano sattima viyena loke apicha domanasam dhammesu dhamman nupasi viharati attabi sambhajano sattima viyena loke apicha domanasam. So the translations is that bhikkhu, this is the only way for the purifications of beings and for overcoming the sorrow and lamentations. So this is the only way, and this is the ways of practicing vipassana meditations. And the practicing of vipassana meditation, there are four foundations of mindfulness. What are the four? Here in this teaching, bhikkhus, a bhikkhu dwell contemplating the bodies in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, removing desire and discontent in the world. The bhikkhu dwell contemplating the feeling in the feelings. The bhikkhu dwell contemplating the consciousness in the consciousness. The bhikkhu dwells contemplating the Dhamma in the Dhamma. Ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, removing desire and discontent in this world. So basically, this is the text that Saji recited from the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the discourse of mindful practicing vipassana meditations, or the four foundations of mindfulness. So in this practice, we're practicing vipassana meditation, not samatha meditation. And for vipassana meditation, it's trying to cultivate wisdom, panya. And what does it mean that contemplating the bodies in the body? The Buddha was very careful, and he emphasized, or he's focused on when a yogi contemplating the body, it has to the body in the body, not the bodies in the feeling, not the bodies in the citta, the consciousness, not the bodies in the Dhamma, the bodies in the body. So in this body, we know that this body is made out of the four major elements, which is water, fire, earth, and wind element. So when the yogi contemplating or being mindful of the activities, the phenomena that happening in the body, the yogi should be able to understand the characteristic of these elements that are made up of the body. So when the yogi practicing vipassana meditations and we contemplating the bodies in the body, why the Buddha mentioned the body first? And within these four foundations of mindfulness, there is no one that higher than another. There is no one that's actually better than the other. The Buddha only mentions the body first because the bodies is a gross object. It's not subtle. So when the yogi is first trying vipassana meditation, trying to contemplating, the easier the object, the grosser the object, that would be easier for the contemplations of the yogi. So let's say when the yogi start to sit and pay attention to the risings and falling of abdomen, the very important Cetasika mental factor we have to have a yoniso manasikara, which is direct the mind or the wise attention. The yogi have to learn how to direct the mind back to the body and contemplating whatever activities happening in the body at the present moment. So when the yogi know how to direct the mind back into the body, then yogi would trying to have sati, mindfulness, to stay on the object. If risings falling of the main object, then the yogi would pay the risings falling of the abdomen. If breathing anapanasati as the main object, then the yogi have to be mindful of the breathing in and breathing out. And doesn't matter what kind of object the yogi choose, either breathing or risings falling of abdomen. The important things is that the yogi have to be ardent and wholeheartedly, mindfully contemplating of each breathing in, each breathing out, as well as each falling and each rising of the abdomen. And sati, mindfulness, is a mental factors, a cetasika, and the characteristic of the cetasika is that they arise together with the mind. They pass away with the mind. They have the same object at the mind, and also they have the same base of the mind. So when there is sati, mindfulness in the mind, sati would remind the mind to stay at the present moment, to stay at the object that they want to, the mind need to contemplate. So when sati is in the mind does not wander. And this sati, Sayagyi's explained that it's a bit different from the regular memory or remembrance. This sati is the samma sati, which is one of the factors in the Eightfold Noble Path. And this sati will remind the mind to stay at the present moment, direct the mind at the object, either the body, either the feeling, either the jeta, consciousness, or the dharma. And sati can be considered as the master key. With sati in the mind, sati would be able to help the knowing mind open all doors. So let's say the human being are made of like two things, bodies and mind, namas and rupa. Namas is the consciousness of the mind, and rupa is the material quality. So when sati arise, or when sati is present, the mind would remember to direct, the mind would remember to stay within the body, and then contemplating whatever the objects at that moment, either the bodies in the body, the feelings in the feeling, or the mind would just contemplating the activities of the mind happening at the present moment, the jetas, the consciousness in the consciousness. So in this world, many of us, we consider ourselves, this body is as I, this body is as my body, this body is as me, and this body is as this ego or this self. And because of this wrong view, because of this wrong thinking, wrong view, wrong perceptions of this body, so therefore we are continue to wander through our samsara. We have this attachment to this idea, this body is I, this body is mine, this body is the self. But when a person practices vipassana meditation, and the person can see that this body is nothing but the four major elements manifested in the way that the law of nature. And this body, everything is just a conditioned things. It comes and it passes away, and it's only the law of nature. It is the way it is. And when the person be able to see that with wisdom through vipassana meditation, the person see the truth. And when the person understands and realizes this truth, the person would cut off or be able to get rid of the wrong thinking as well, the wrong view that lead to this body is I, this body is my, or the same thing. When the person see that in the body, the person also see that in the other foundation, which is this feelings is not I, this feeling is not mine, this feeling is not my feeling, etc. And that would go the same with the Jeta, the consciousness, as well the old Dharma. So in our daily life, we live with this body every day. From the moment we wake up until the moment that we fall asleep, we live with these bodies and with mind. Unfortunately, many of us don't know that. We do not know that we are actually live with these bodies and this mind. And this body and this mind is only Dharma. And this Dharma is just the law. It's the law of nature. It's just the nature's manifestations of itself. And then because we don't know that, so therefore, we having all this attachment, we have all this craving. I'm sorry, attachment to the self, this craving, wanting to live, wanting to have a long life, and so therefore, that is the cause of the birth and rebirth and death. And since this bodies and mind is nothing but just the laws of nature's manifestations, manifested itself, then we will see that everything, all the Dharma would be come to being or come to existence based on the conditions. When all the conditions are right and fulfilled, then the manifestation would arise. But then when all the conditions are not there, so not fulfilled, then they will come to the cessations of all phenomena. Just like that, same thing with the bodies and same thing with the mind. There's only forever changings of natural phenomena, because when the conditions are right and when the conditions are there, then they will manifest. But when the conditions is not there, then it will cease. So when the person really truly experience vipassana insight, then the person will see that where is the happiness, where is the things that we think that this life is so happy, this life is full of bliss. Actually, there's nothing like that. Not within ourselves, not within others. And when we see it that way, we'll be able to cut off all this wrong thinking, all these wrong perceptions of the view of the things that permanent, and we will see things that everything is actually anicca. Anicca is impermanent, and because of impermanent is dukkha, is suffering, and because of that we have no control over it, and therefore it's anatta, non-self. And when we see it that way, then we will be able to realize the truth that the Buddha is trying to teach us. Sayagyi's mentioned that we live in this world, and this is the realms of the human being. So below us, there are 4 woeful realms where many sentient beings are suffering great deal, and because of that, they cannot practice vipassana meditation, and they cannot see the truth. And above us, then this is the realms of the heaven. And in the heaven, most of all the deities and all the angels are having so much fun. They are enjoying their bliss. They're having a great times. And when a person was born as a deva or as an angel, the person would have very good appearance for a very, very long time. So therefore, it's very hard for the deities to understand or to see aging, to see sickness, or even death or birth, because the deities are spontaneous born or birth. So therefore, there's no suffering of birth, and because of their great merits, they do not age, they do not get sick. So therefore, they do not see the suffering of aging or sickness. And just like that, when the deity pass away, they just disappear. They don't die the way human beings do. So therefore, they do not understand or experience the suffering of death. And because of that, it's extremely difficult for the deities to practice vipassana meditation, to see the truth of suffering, which is the first noble truth that the Buddha taught. So in our realm, as a human realm, this is the best area of the best realm for us to practice vipassana meditation, because we have limited lifespan. The way that most human beings can only live up to 100 years. And from the moment that we was born, there is sufferings of birth, there's a suffering of aging, there's a sufferings of sickness, and also there's a suffering of death. And because of that, we will be able to have the incentive to practice to get out of this suffering so much from the moment that we was born to the moment that we die. And this incentive to help us to practice Vipassana meditation ardently and wholeheartedly so that we can exit out of the cycle of death and rebirth, the cycle of samsara. So throughout the 40 years of teachings, the Buddha only taught about the law of karma. The law of karma is nothing else, nothing but the cause and effect. It's only the cause, what the action would carry out, the consequences, the effects of it. And the Buddha talks about the karma just like the shadow. Whatever we do, this just like the shadow with the body, wherever we go, this karma, this effects will always come go with us. So therefore, we want to learn to understand that how to commit, first of all, wholesome deeds so that we, first of all, cultivate merits. And secondly, we have to understand that everything is just only the laws of nature, cause and effect, nothing else. And when we understand it that way, we will be able to practice in order to change our life from unwholesome to wholesome. So in terms of the Sobhana Cetasika, the beautiful mental factors, the first beautiful mental factors that Buddha mentions is asaddha, faith. So faith is very important because having faith in the Buddha, having faith in the Dhamma, having faith in the Sangha, then the person will start practicing. And then when the person keep on practicing, and when the practice is mature, when the person develop panya, wisdom, then the person would have stronger faith in the Buddha, the one who realized the truth in this Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha to lead the person to realize the truth, and as well in the Sangha, the disciple of the Buddha who already also realized the truth the way that the Buddha did. So when talk about faith, we also have to start with talk about sila, morality, because sila, moralities, is the foundations of the practice. If you have faith, then you have to have sila in order to practice. Without, in order to keep the precept, then you have to have faith. So these are like very beneficial, and one is connected to another. Without faith, you cannot keep sila, and without sila, you cannot practice vipassana meditation. And Sayagyi gave a story of a servant of a very wealthy man. His name was, the wealthy merchant was Anatta Bandika, and he has a servant. So after a very long days of working, the servant came back to the household, and he didn't eat anything for the whole day. So he came back and he realized that no one's eating dinner at that time. And he was asking around and realized that, oh, that was the day that people in the household observe Uposatha Sila, which is the 8th precept. And with the 8th precept, we do not eat in the afternoon. And then the servant thought that, oh, our master, he is extremely wealthy. He's so rich and he has so many merits but he's still observing sila. So for me as a servant, I'm so poor, so I should also follow him to observe sila, observe the uposatha, so that I can cultivate some merits for myself, so that I can be like him. So that was his thinking. And Sayagyi say a side note with that is that it's very important for us to associate with the wise ones. So just a servant, but then he was be able to serve in a very good household, in the household where they know the Dhamma, they practice the Dhamma, and they observe sila. So therefore, the servant, without knowing anything, can even follow that footstep. So the servant decided to keep the 8th precept. And because of the whole day working very tiredly, and he had nothing to eat, he became sick at nighttime. And the master, Anatta Bintika, saw that, and he came and he told the servant that, you're sick now, why don't you eat something so that you will feel better physically? But the servant refused to eat anything, because he said that I want to keep the precept, I want to observe the precept, even though just for 1 day and 1 night. And because of that, the servant passed away. And as soon as he passed away, the servant was born into the deities and were born into the heaven realms and become a deity. So Sayagyi told the story to emphasize or to give the example of how important sila is. And even when the person do not know how to practice vipassana meditation or even samadhi, samatha meditation, do not have any concentration samadhi, just by keeping sila, the person would be able to be born in the heaven realms, and that is the guarantee. And in Vietnamese, we have the saying that you can practice all your life, but there is only one moment to realize the truth or one moment of liberated. So Sayagyi encouraged yogi to continue to practice because you never know when that moment will come to you, when the moment of liberation, the moments of enlightenment will come. And faith, again, first of all, to have faith to practice, because without faith, you cannot keep sila. And without sila, there is no foundation for the practice, no foundation for concentration, and if there is no concentration, there will be no panya, wisdom. And another mental factor, cetasika, that Sayagyi mentions is adhimokha, and that is resolution. So the story Sayagyi gave that when the person decided to do something, you have to be determined, you have to be firm about what you want to do in keeping sila as well as practicing ardently and wholeheartedly. So when the person practices, then it's very important for us to see the mind. And Sayagyi give the example, the story of Tongpulu Sayagyi. So Tongpulu Sayagyi was a very good Burmese monk. One time when he came to the US and he saw that everybody was so busy, they have no time to practice. So therefore, he taught a very, very easy method to help people to practice within only 5 minutes. And Tongpulu Sayagyi say that knowing is liberation, not knowing is ignorance. And this ignorance can cause all kind of suffering. And that is the cause of a cycle of death and rebirth, the cycle of samsara. So the method that Tongpulu Sayagyi thought was simple and easy. One day, throughout the day, no matter how busy the yogi or the practitioner can be, you only take 5 minutes to practice. And for example, from the moment that you wake up, then what do you do first? You see first or you hear first. So sometimes most people would open their eye first, and when you open your eye, we will see things. So when these seeing happen, are you aware that there's seeing happening, or is there a knowing mind, knowing that seeing is happening? Because if you see all day long, but you do not know that the knowing mind does not aware that there is seeing happening, then the mind actually is not living. Same thing like that with hearings or touching. You hear all the sounds all the time, but normally when we hear something, the mind would go either to the past or into the future. The mind does not stay at the present moment. The mind does not know that, oh, there's hearing happening or there's seeing happening. Same thing with all kinds of activities. And throughout the day, there are 4 main postures that we all do: sitting, walking, standing, and lying. But when you sit, are you aware that you're sitting? Is there a knowing mind that you know is sitting? When you walk, is there a knowing mind knowing that you're walking? So just like that, the yogi just have to have remember, knowing is living, knowing what is going on in the body, knowing what's going on in the mind, knowing what's going on in the body at the present moment. And when the person understand that or see that, then the person will see that, oh, this seeing is happening in the eyes, and then this hearing is happening in the ears, and all these ears, eyes, is only this body. So this body, all these things arise in this body. So therefore, we have to know this body. We have to know our mind. And when we knowing that, when we know our body and we know our mind, then we actually knowing or experiencing the insight of vipassana meditations. So only 5 minutes, no matter how busy you are, try 5 minutes. When you start to go from the door to the car, then you have to know that, oh, closing the door, opening the door, walking to the car, opening to the car, driving the car, so on and so forth. So that way, the person's always trying to know what is going on at the present moment. And if the person can even do that for 5 minutes throughout the day, the person can do it for 1 minute. And if even cannot do it for 1 minute, then trying to do it in 3 breathing. Because Sariji say that breathing is very important. We breathe every day. We breathe in the moment. Even when we sleep, there's breathing happening. But then we do not know that we are breathing. And without breathing 3 minutes, we can die. So if the person cannot do for 5 minutes, at least do for 5 or 3 breathing. And when you breathe in, you would pay attention and knowing the entire breathing process. And when you breathe out, you would pay attention and knowing the entire breathing out process. And you can do that for 1, 2, 3 breathing. And just like that, we do that entire day whenever that the yogi remembers or have time. And even though it might take a very little time, but it can go a long way, because just like when the person tired, you have to stop to eat. When we drive the car, we have to stop to get gas. Just like that, the mind the mind should not be wandering into the past or in the future all the time. It's really taking the toll and draining the energies of the mind. So when we pay attention, when we direct the mind back into the body or back into the mind at the present moment, even just for 3 breathing for 1 minute or 5 minutes a day, that can really help our mind, strengthen our mind, and give our mind the momentum or the sati it needs. Moving on, Saraji's answer the questions. I will try to be as quick as I can, so I'm sorry about the time. So there's a question from a practitioner. Dear Bante, in the daily life, there's a lot of pressures and there's a lot of argument that's happening, especially when you have to work during the daily life, as well as the relationship in the family and in the workplace. When fighting with other people, sometimes I could not control myself and I would say some things very harshly. And sometimes I would win the argument and sometimes I would lose the argument. And when I lose the argument, I feel very upset and I feel very unpleasant. But when I win the argument, then I feel very happy and I feel very satisfied. But either way, after that, I cannot keep the harmony in the relationship. And at the end of it, or at this result of it, then I either get hurt or the person would get hurt. And because of that, we lose faith in the other person or we lose faith in the relationship. So sometimes I feel that when the mind is calmed down and I reflect on what happened, I can feel that whatever we say, it's just like pouring the water out of the cup. And when you spit the water out already, you cannot take it back anymore. And that can cause a lot of remorse and regret. So when things like this happen, what should I do? How do I let go of all these remorse and regrets, as well as all this sorrow and lamentation? Could you please tell me, or could you please guide me how to live in the daily life so that my life would be more meaningful? So that when I become 80 years old, I will still be smart, healthy, as well as having a clear mind without any fear. And nowadays, I see that many people, even in their 50 or 60, their mind or their memories would decrease a lot already. And they can even forget about themselves, as well as their relatives and their loved ones. And most of the times, I can see that people tend to lose control when it's come to relationship or when it's come to money. And the example the yogi gave to Sarachi is that in Vietnam, a few days ago, a Korean person just killed another person, as well as there's a lot of cases where husband and wife are hurting or killing each other. So could you please tell me what I should do, Bante? So that is the question that the yogi had for the Sayadaw. And this answer he gave was very brief, and he was mentioned that sati, just have mindfulness, be mindful of whatever. be mindful of whatever is going on in the body, whatever going on in the mind at the present moment. And here's at Mahasatipatthana Meditation Center, we have a huge statue of Bakula, Venerable Bakula. And he was the Arahant who lived up to 160 years old. He was the one have the longest life in all the disciples of the Buddha. And not only he have a long life, he also have very clear mind and perfect health in a way. So for that, when a person, there's many experiences the yogi mentioned in the questions, Saraji felt like it's very practical and it's very practical and it's very truthful, because he also felt that in his life before too. So the best thing to do is just to practice and to have sati, to remember, to live at the present moment, to direct the mind back into the body, back into the mind. Knowing, remember, knowing is living, knowing is liberation. Not knowing or forgetfulness is dying, or not knowing is the cause of a cycle of death and rebirth. And when the person trying to live at the present moment, no matter how busy you are, you can just do the practice, just like Tumbulu Sayadaw Sarachi taught, 5 minutes, Sarachi taught, 5. And whenever that happening in the mind, whether it's happiness, whether it's lamentations or sorrow or sadness, all you have to do is just be mindful of it and contemplate on it. And just let sati, mindfulness, take care of everything. Because sati, mindfulness, is the master key. It will be able to open all the door, untie all the knots, and as well as resolve all the problems. So Saraji's encourage yogi to be mindful and trying to practice vipassana meditation, so that the yogi would be able to see the mind and experience the peacefulness that the practice can give. That's all I have for today, a summary of the translation. Thank you so much for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.